Hey guys, welcome to our second video. I'm Tyler, and I'm here with my buddy Nate, and we're here to talk about one of our favorite cards in the whole game, Valar Morghulis.
Now, we have been playing this game since first edition. We came in probably around the ninth chapter pack cycle, and by that time, Valor was already a huge part of the game. So,
Yeah,
for us, we have only known a Game of Thrones
with Valor.
So second edition came along, and we all know for the first cycle and then some, there was no Valor.
Yeah, for the first two cycles, right?
I think, yeah. Well, I think it came out,
Middle of the second then.
it was fourth chapter pack, and the second cycle just ended.
Okay.
Yeah.
So either way, it was pretty weird for us playing the game without Valor, but now it's back, and it gives us a chance to talk about it, talk about a little bit of the differences between having Valor and not having Valor, and what it all means for, how you build your deck, how do you approach the game with your strategy. Where do you want to start, Nate?
I think we should talk about how Valor changes the game before you even start playing.
Okay.
Because Valor influences the way you build your deck.
Sure.
I think that's a fair statement.
Okay.
You want to run more dupes. You might consider putting in extra saves. Like, you might want to run bodyguards now.
The Eerie.
The Eerie's very good.
Everyone jumped on that Greyjoy, bandwagon once they saw Valor. Hey, let's run Iron Mines. And to be fair, obviously that makes sense. Greyjoy's going to do better when both players have a plot that says kill all characters.
And Iron Mines is such a good save because it's like a bodyguard for each of your characters.
Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah, Iron Mines is super good. Greyjoy is very good. But this is all a result of Valor entering the meta. Mm-hmm. So it changes the way you build the deck. And in addition to that, it changes the way you play your game.
Yeah.
And we all know this. We all sit down and we think to ourselves, I don't want to play too many big characters.
You don't want to run out of cards in your hand and risk losing your board.
I don't want to maybe play that key character like Tywin without a way to save him. Mm-hmm. Because you're always playing with the idea that your opponent can play Valor at any plot phase, right?
And you never want it to completely crush your entire position,
So it changes the way you play the game. And I think for one card that may or may not even be in your opponent's plot deck to change the way everyone plays the game, that's huge.
It's important to at least consider, while you're playing your game.
Valar Morghulis is a cornerstone of the Game of Thrones card game.
Right.
This on-demand reset, because we were all running resets before. Mm-hmm. There was Wildfire, First Snow of Winter. When building your plot deck, you usually had some form of reset in mind. Maybe it was even Varys in your draw deck.
Some way to control the board.
But you had to stop your opponent if they were ahead. You had to have a way to come back, right?
Yeah. The big comparison that I've been, thinking about in my head about this card that I think maybe will make it click a little bit more for more people is that if you take a look at the deck that won Gen Con, Lanny, Banner of the Dragon, running Put to the Sword, Tears of Lys, Miri Mazdor. Basically, the goal of the deck is, shit out your big dudes and then play your kill events to control your opponent's board, And really, Valar Morghulis is doing the exact same thing, except you don't have the restriction of having to, pull off your events. All you have to do is just play the plot, and you control your opponent's board.
And you always have access to it. So it reduces the variance of having to draw your events.
Right. You don't have to worry about, hey, am I the first player to get Gregor put to the sword and a lucky Gregor off to just win the game, That's not going to happen. If your opponent does that to you, it's like, okay, that sucks, but I'll just play Valor, and now he loses his board too,
It always offers you some way to claw back. And I feel like before Valor, there were some games where your opponent would just get too far ahead. Maybe they've got 3 really good characters out that your Wildfire just cannot touch.
Right. Wildfire also can't touch renowned characters sometimes. Like if you think about a deck and you're playing late game, and they've got 3 dudes out, each with 3 power on them. Wildfire can't touch them, but if you play Valar Morghulis, now your opponent just lost 9 power.
And that is just one way to stop your opponent from steamrolling you. It offers you this option to come back when you're behind. And that's why we really love Valar Morghulis, because it makes for a longer game.
Right. It gives you the option to play for a longer game. It's not just a rush to 15 power. It's more of a slow game of control, and eventually one person ends up on top.
I think it adds an important level of strategy. The cards you hold on to in your hand, it puts more emphasis on cards in your hand.
Right.
You want to have maybe more draw in the deck. You don't want to be top decking.
If your board gets destroyed by Valor, you want to be able to repopulate the board. Not enough for maybe a second Valor to cripple you, but enough to, get power, control the challenges.
Even if you're not in crazy control, even if you don't have, more than a few characters on the board, you might not want to play the last character in your hand because your opponent hasn't Valored yet.
Right. That's a big thing that I know I have, kind of like ingrained in my head from first edition is, once I get to plot 5, 6, I have to think about, okay, what plots are left in my opponent's deck? My opponent hasn't Valored yet. Maybe one of them's Valor. How do I want to play with my characters in my hand, playing for all the last 2 or 3 plots, post both those Valors, how can I get past that and still have a board presence to get to 15 power?
So the game no longer becomes about the beat sticks. You're not just trying to play the biggest characters and whoever gets them out first wins, because a lot of times you're saving those big characters for post Valor.
For, the maximum number of plots that you can get effective out of them before they die.
So I really like the card because I think it adds more to the game.
Right. It gives it a deeper level.
I would agree. And the fact that you always have access to it, it's not variance related.
Right.
And
well, here's one thing. On all of that, it's so good, but it's not way overtuned. It's not way too good. It's got poor stats.
It's got very poor stats, and it's in that regard, I think it's very balanced.
It's very balanced. 2 gold, you're not going to be playing a lot when on your Valor turn. So you have to plan out, do I have saves to keep dudes around? Do I have a card like the Hound that can maybe defend my opponent's military challenge and save my dudes? Because, you don't want a Valor, have 2 saves, and only be able to play like a Chud, and then your Chud dies and you just get marched, and now your Valor really didn't help you that much, You have to be wary of the 0 claim. That's a turn where maybe you're not going to be doing a whole lot. Maybe you try and go on the defensive. For some decks like Reigns of Castamere, they've got a way to get around that 0 claim. If they can flip into a different plot, then they negate that 0 claim and that 5 reserve.
That's a good deck that makes great use of Valor.
Really good use of Valor.
More control-heavy decks that don't really care so much about claim. We've seen these... what deck just won? Store Championship. It was Martel.
Banner of the Stag.
Banner of the Stag. It was running very low characters, a lot of events. I'm sure that deck did not care about claim, and I know it was running Valor. So decks that can really utilize the reset but still mitigate the disadvantage of the low stats are the ones that are going to make the best use out of this card.
Right, and it's really a card you should be trying to get very good use out of because it's so efficient. Just such efficient control. You just, at any time, kill each character.
And I think you're right. Valor is character control. Valor is like the ultimate put to the sword because it's nuking every character.
Right.
It is character control. This is a control card.
I mean, it depends on how you use it.
I guess.
It's kind of like a control card, but you can use it in aggressive decks. Like there's some Greyjoy decks that Valor aggressively. I know the Laney Reigns deck kind of Valor's aggressively sometimes.
But wouldn't you even say that an aggressive Valor is a form of control? Much like Intimidate, I would consider a form of control. Even though that's a very aggressive keyword, one that can only be used while attacking, it's still a form of control.
I guess it makes sense. It messes with your opponent's side of the board. And you just have to be able to, deal with the low stats and it messing with your side of the board too.
But you are absolutely right that it can be used offensively. And decks like Greyjoy decks or Reigns of Castamere decks that can really take advantage of this card and put it to even further use. They don't see this card as a way to claw back. They see this as a way to stay ahead.
Right.
So the fact that this one card offers you so many options, it's a great card. It's a fantastic game-shaping card. I also think that this card puts more emphasis on setups.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about setups. Earlier you said that when you play Valor, you're going for a longer game. You're going to play more plots. You're not going to just do a 3-plot race to 15 power.
Yes.
So in those games where you're going 7, 8, 9 plots, 6 plots, whatever, you're going, every single card that you draw is going to have to count that much more. It's going to have to make that much more of an impact. And so, before in 2.0, the setups were like, okay, let's just try and get a 7-drop and a 1-drop. And then, let's play another 7-drop and a 5-drop with our trading. And then I've got my big dudes on the board. My setup didn't matter. But now, like, if you do that, you just get Valored. And really the setup needs to be more centered around, let's try and get some dudes on the board, but not too many. Let's try and get some locations.
Locations have become a lot better
right
after Valor made an appearance, because locations are effectively immune to Valor.
Right, yeah, it's a card that you get to put in play and then won't leave. But just going back to setups, having higher number of setups, 5-card setups, 4-card setups, are just that much more important, because just drawing those extra cards, even just those extra characters, so you have more bodies on the board overall in the game than your opponent, you're going to have an easier time dealing with their challenges.
The faster you dig into the deck, the better you are and the more prepared you are for yours or your opponent's Valor.
Right.
So obviously the better setups, the more cards you redraw, the easier it is to get into your deck.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, locations are really good for setup, especially because it almost doesn't incentivize your opponent to Valor. If you've got a strong character board, your opponent will be more likely to Valor. But if you have more locations out, it's a good way to, hold it off for another round.
Right. But going with those locations, there's obviously a very fine line that you have to toe, because you do need characters. Locations can't do challenges. They can't get you power and win you the game, And a card we were playing with for a little while was, Sea Bitch. And we were running a Greyjoy Banner the Lion deck that was just kind of like a rush deck with a lot of saves, running King Balon, Jaime, all the renown. And we ended up cutting Sea Bitch, though, a lot of people seemed to really like it. Just because, we had a lot of locations, and it was just a location that wasn't a character. It wasn't doing challenges. And a lot of the times, when I found that I drew it, I was just like, I wish this was a character I could play.
I would definitely agree with that. I tend to lean towards closer to 40 than 35 characters, I would say. 36, 37, 38, that's the number of characters. I always want to have a character to play, especially now that Valor exists.
Right.
And especially considering most games you might see 2 Valors or more. And you want to always have a character to play that turn. You never want to be without a character on the board. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Because then you're not doing challenges, you're not winning Dome, you're not getting power, you're not getting closer to winning the game.
It's a whole turn where you're not doing anything, because you need characters to win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, until they make locations that become characters, like in first edition.
That'd be pretty fun.
Right. We just need more cards. But what else?
I think that if you are trying to go far in a tournament, if you are trying to win as many games as you can, you will want to include Valor in your plot deck.
It's definitely a Jaime card.
Yes. If you want to build a more janky deck or want to build a combo-driven, we're not saying every deck has to run Valor, but the decks that make it far will be running it.
Yeah, that's for sure. It just gives you that consistency where, I just think the analogy to, like, Put to the Sword in Tears of Bliss, like, 7 months ago is just, like, really good. I would definitely rather just play a plot than having to draw cards and then, satisfy a condition. It's just 10 times easier, and I'm going to be able to pull it off, every single game instead of just, 2 or 3 games out of 5. Yeah, it's really nice.
It's a great card. It's definitely one of our favorites, and until it gets rotated out, it's going to shape the game for as long as it's in the meta. It's going to just...
It allows for a lot more skill, too.
Yes.
Player skill to shine, especially in those longer games.
So, if you are uncertain about Valor, if you're maybe new to Game of Thrones and you haven't played with this card before, we would definitely recommend trying it out. You definitely... It takes some learning when to play it.
How to play around it, yeah.
Yeah.
How to play your game thinking about Valor, how to think 3 plots ahead for when my opponent might Valor. It takes a lot of practice, for sure. So, one thing I can say is your opponent's probably going to be running it. You should play as if your opponent's is running it, whether or not you know. And, running it yourself is good practice just for those situations where your opponent's running it. It helps you get in the right mindset of how to play your decks. So, I definitely encourage you to play it, just not against me.
So I think the last thing that I would like to talk about,
sure,
since we did say that this is a card, a more Jamie card, one that you're going to want to go, win games with, go far in tournaments. If you go far in a tournament and you're not running Valor,
right?
Maybe you've played someone in Swiss that you have to play again in the top cut. If they know that you're not running Valor, I think that's an automatic huge disadvantage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because now they can extend all they like, right?
Yeah, if they know your resets, then they can play around it. If they know you're only running Wildfire, maybe they won't flood the board, but they won't be worried about dropping Tywin without a dupe or a save, They won't worry about those renowned characters. They'll just be like, hey, I'm just going to put these characters out there because I know you can't deal with them immediately, Maybe you've got put to the sword or tears a list, but I can play around it if I know that that's what you have.
Your opponent is always playing as if you have Valor. So you need to make good on that threat. You need to be able to make good on that threat of Valor.
Otherwise, they don't have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with this plot, Tyler?
I think we kind of covered everything. Why you should be running it, how it works, how it affects the game, the balances of it.
If you guys think of anything that we didn't cover, maybe some questions, concerns, thoughts on the card, please let us know.
Leave a comment, even if it's not about Valar Morghulis. Let's say there's another Game of Thrones topic that, you think we could delve into, or you'd like to know about, maybe a specific card, specific deck, how to play tournaments.
We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you liked our video.
Yeah, if you like it, hit the subscribe button, throw us a like.
Yeah,
we hope you enjoyed it.
Stay tuned for more.
Right.
We'll be back next week.
Thank you, guys.